The story of raising Lazarus from the dead is quite interesting and it's also confusing. Confusing because of the attitude of Jesus as narrated in the story. But today, let us not overly concern ourselves with the attitude of Jesus. Rather, let us concentrate on three significant points from the story and see how we can apply them in our everyday Christian living. The first point is a relationship. The Bible we read says that Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, meaning therefore that Jesus had deep personal, affectionate, and special bond with the family. Also, their house in Bethany was one place where Jesus felt welcome and at ease. He had dinner at some point with them. So the relationship between Jesus and the family was not formal. It was not spiritual. It was a relationship marked by closeness, hospitality, and affection. So because of the existing relationship, because of this special relationship between Jesus and Lazarus, when the sisters wanted to inform Jesus of their brother's sickness, they said to him, "Lord, the one you love is sick." Underline again that special connection, that special relationship, that affection between Jesus and Lazarus. Now, despite this special bond and relationship between Jesus and Lazarus, Jesus still allowed Lazarus to suffer the pains of illness and to die. Jesus still allowed his sisters, the same family he loved, to go through the pains and agony and the grief of losing an only brother. What does that tell you about our relationship with God, our relationship with Jesus? My cousin lost her 70-year-old mom to cancer a few months ago. So when I called to offer my condolences, she was practically yelling at me. "Nathaniel, you know my mom. She was good. She was so devoted to God and she was faithful. All her life, she spent it practically in the church, leading her prayers, serving as the sacristan, using her resources and time to serve God in the church. Indeed, I knew the mom. She was called a friend of Jesus in the parish. So she was quite outstanding in her Christian witnessing and also in her devotion to God. So she kept saying, why would then God allow my mom to pass through this? Is there no reward for being devoted to God?" As she was yelling at me, I remember also that a few years ago, I raised the same question to God when I was first diagnosed with prediabetes in my early 30s. I couldn't understand it. Part of my spirituality then was not to drink or smoke. And I was being very attentive, and I was ever attentive to my diet. And then also looking into my family, nobody has ever had a history of diabetes, not nuclear, not extended. So why me? And perhaps also, I was a young priest, so I wasn't expecting myself to suffer such health crisis, having given myself to God. So I felt I was special, that certain things shouldn't come my way at that time. You know, sometimes when you have done what you are expected to do, when you think you have done all things well, when you think you have been faithful to certain things and you have been actually doing what you are expected to do before God and man, you expect ordinarily there are certain things that shouldn't come your way. And when they show up, you begin to ask yourself, why me? Despite all that I have done for God and for the church, why would I be subjected to this kind of pain? So if you have ever felt that way or raised such questions or ever been in that corner where you think that because of your spirituality, because of your regular attendance at masses, because you lead at prayers, because you say your rosary every day, and because you have special connection and relationship with God. Certain things shouldn't happen to you. Always remember Lazarus. The story of Lazarus, therefore, teaches us that despite our special relationship and perhaps devotion to God, these things do not function as protective barriers against life challenges. That I'm so close to us doesn't mean that I am immune from pains and sufferings. God indeed has not promised us an exemption. And that is one thing, that in the relationship between Jesus and Lazarus, still Lazarus went through pains to the point of dying. Second point is communication. When Lazarus was sick, the sisters communicated to Jesus the situation of their brother. They must have done that based on two grounds or two reasons. Number one, because of the existing relationship between them and Jesus. So informing Jesus that his friend Lazarus was sick was something ideal, something you're supposed to do for a friend. So let's take it that from that angle, they were just giving him an information about his friend Lazarus. You know, when you have a close friend, you would like to tell him or her everything more or less. So telling Jesus that your friend Lazarus is sick, I think it should be something ordinarily a friend should do. The second point was that they must have done that because Jesus, being God, had power to heal and to save the friend. So, on two reasons, this is your friend, we're informing you he is sick. And then, as God, we're expecting you to do something. Because you can do it even from afar. You can send words and Lazarus will be healed. You have done it for others. So there was an expectation from the family, apart from just informing him based on friendship connection. An old parishioner in Nigeria relocated to UK. They live somewhere in around Manchester. They called me some time ago to inform me that their mom was in the hospital. So I said to them, because of distance, I may not be able to visit. So I'm happy to offer masses for your mom who is in the hospital. They said, okay, Father Nathaniel, thank you. But don't worry about that. It hasn't come to that. It is not yet a life-threatening situation. If anything changes, we're going to tell you, and then you can offer the masses. I said, wait. I want to offer masses for your mom who is in the hospital. And you are telling me that it hasn't come to that point. So I want to ask you, members of the church, at what point do you get God involved in everything that is happening in your life? At what point? Now, when Lazarus became sick, the sisters sent words immediately to Jesus. They did something simple but profound. So often, when things come our way, we try to do it by ourselves. We try everything we want to do, relying on our own strength, on our own plans, on our own initiatives, on our own connections. And then when we run out of options, when we have exhausted all alternatives, when things have fallen apart, then we remember, oh, God, oh, the church. At what point do you usually invite God? Do we make him our last option instead of first response? Do we make him our last resort instead of first point of contact? The story of Lazarus, especially the attitude of the sisters, teaches us the value, the urgency, the necessity of connecting, getting God involved. If not for any other thing, at least God is our friend. If you don't want to tell him to get involved to heal, to come and rescue you, at least give him that as an information, just as the sisters must have informed Jesus of Lazarus' illness out of the friendship connection before even calling him as God. So there are two reasons why we should always get God involved: friendship, and because he has the power to intervene. The third point and the last one is delay. You cannot talk about the story of Lazarus and Jesus, especially the raising of Lazarus from the dead, without talking about what Jesus did when the family communicated to him the situation of their brother Lazarus. What did he do? When he received the message, he didn't act immediately. He didn't respond immediately. He delayed for extra 2 days. He stayed where he was. Doing what? We don't know. The Bible didn't tell us. But he stayed for extra 2 days before visiting the family, before responding to them, such that by the time he got to the family on the fourth day, Lazarus was already dead and buried. Now, why didn't Jesus respond immediately to the emergency call from his friend? Let's go back to the Bible. When he received the information that Lazarus was sick, what did he say? He said, "Oh, the sickness of Lazarus will lead to the glory of God." And he continued doing what he was doing. He didn't give any answer to them. He didn't do anything. He just kept doing what he was doing, whatever that was. Now, by our own way of thinking as human beings, one may not be totally wrong to blame Jesus for the death of Lazarus. Because if he had responded swiftly and timely, he would have saved Lazarus from dying. The sisters also shared the same thoughts. That was why when Martha met him, he said to him clearly, "If you have been here sooner, my brother wouldn't have died." Then independently, when Mary came again on her own, she repeated the same statement. "If you had been here, Lazarus, my brother, would have survived." So they had expectation, and they expressed their disappointment because of the delay. How do you manage divine delay? When you call, your call is put on hold. Just like when you call all these business organizations, they just tell you, "You are number 20. You say, "Oh God, 20. I'm asking for urgent attention. You are telling me I'm number 20. And perhaps patiently you are waiting. And then when it gets to you are number 3, all of a sudden, the line drops dead. Oh. And you begin again. When you ring back, they'll tell you, "You are now number 31. You just get frustrated because you wanted an immediate attention and they were wasting your time. Sometimes God puts us on hold. What do you do? The story of Lazarus is quite remarkable in this aspect. It teaches us that there's a difference between what we want, despite our own way of judging that it's an emergency, and what God is planning. Now, the family of Lazarus wanted healing for their brother. That's what they wanted. But Jesus, being his special friend, wanted resurrection for his friend. And he cannot grant resurrection until Lazarus is dead. So he had to wait. Now, beside healing Lazarus would have been something wonderful. But also raising him from the dead was extraordinary and spectacular. And also watch it also, there were other persons Jesus raised from the dead in the Bible. But it was only Lazarus that he raised from the grave. Others weren't buried before they were raised. Lazarus is the only one who was buried in the tomb after a few days, meaning that no matter how it seems that at the end, God will always show up for his special friend with special delivery, with special package. At the beginning, people might be asking you, "I thought you are faithful to God. I thought you are so good in the church. I thought, why this is happening to you?" If you manage the delay very well, he will always show up with special package, special delivery. So, dear friends, when you feel that you are called, your prayers are not giving an urgency, an emergency they require, remember how Lazarus and the sisters managed the divine delay. Sometimes when you think that things are not turning up, it might be that God is cooking something better. So, in all, the story of Lazarus, first relationship, that despite their relationship, Lazarus and his sisters weren't immune from pains. God didn't promise anyone exemption, but he made a promise of his presence. And that was why he never denied them his presence. He still showed up according to his timing. Number two, the sisters rushed to Jesus to say, this is our situation. I hope we need to know that we don't need to wait till things get out of hand before we tell God. And finally, the delay Jesus demonstrated must teach us that God's delays are never God's denials. It could be that God indeed is cooking something better. And when it shows up, it's gonna be a special delivery.